Hello and welcome to CNN News 18. Today we have with us a very special guest, a guest who has just completed 1 year in India. He is Australian High Commissioner Mr. Philip Green. Mr. Philip, a very warm welcome to CNN News 18 and thanks that you've given us time from your busy schedule.
I'm delighted to be with you.
So how have been the last 1 year in India?
It was very exciting for me. This is the 5th time that I've been an ambassador in a foreign country, and all of those have been important, but there's nothing more important at the moment than our relationship with India, which is now a strategic partner. Australia and India have been friends for many years, but now we're working together. We share a vision for the Indo-Pacific. We're discovering each other economically. India is, of course, a fast-growing economy. We are a very complementary economy. We produce many of the goods and services that India needs to grow in its next phase. We've also got the first phase of a free trade agreement, and we're working on the second phase. And the other really important part of our bilateral relationship is what we call the human bridge. There's now nearly 1 million people of Indian origin in Australia. 1 million people might not seem a lot for India, but it's an awful lot in our country. Nearly 4% of our population. They're making a big contribution to our society and enormously welcome.
And what really led you, to come to Kolkata, and how have you been in Kolkata?
Well, this is one of my favourite cities in India. I love the intellectual and literary life here. You know, the city of Amartya Sen, the city of Satyajit Roy, the city of Rabindranath Tagore. It's always a delight to come here. But this is also an important place in modern India. This is the home for more than 300 million people across this vast north and northeast region. For us, it's very important because it's strategically crucial. Australia's focus in this area is in the northeast Indian Ocean, and the waterways off the Bay of Bengal are crucial. You, of course, in this neighbourhood have important neighbours, Myanmar and Bangladesh, where there's been some trouble recently, and we watch that very closely and we listen carefully to the perspectives that come out of Kolkata and Delhi on that. And the other thing is that we think of Eastern India as the focus for India's mining industry. And as you know, Australia is a mining giant globally. There's many great techniques and capabilities we can bring to this part of India that can help improve your mining technology and also make it safer and make it more sustainable. So for all of those reasons, India's east is very important to Australia, and I plan to be coming back and back. This is already my 3rd trip to Calcutta in my 1 year here as High Commissioner in India.
So how do you find Mr. Modi and Modi 3.0? You have also experienced the very interesting election that took place.
Mr. Modi is a great friend of Australia, and the period of his prime ministership has seen the biggest uptick of our bilateral relations in our history. He shares a very warm friendship with Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, and they are very close and aligned perspectives on many international issues. We see a lot of continuity in what will happen in the next 5 years. Many of the key ministers whom we deal with, Mr. Jaishankar, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Mr. Pradhan, these people have resumed their previous roles. They're people also who have a favourable impression of Australia, I think, and we think that this next period is a period for continuing expansion of our bilateral links in these three key areas: strategic alignment, economic complementarity, and people-to-people relations.
Now, with specifically the ECTA coming up, how do you see the trade relations going on?
Well, I think it's all up and up. So think about this. Over the last 5 years, India's exports to every country in the world have grown by 37%. That sounds like a lot, but India's exports to Australia have grown by more than 60%. That's nearly twice the speed with which exports are growing to the world. So for us, there's huge opportunity. ECTA has helped. Here I am in Eastern India. Let me talk about 2 commodities which are important here. In terms of apparel, clothing, India's exports to Australia since ECTA have gone up by 20%. And in terms of iron and steel, another important product from this part of India, those exports have gone up by 16% since ECTA. So we see that this free trade agreement is really working, and we're keen to close a second phase of it.
Mr. Modi has gone to Ukraine. So, how do you react to that? And he has gone there and said that nothing should be there on the battlefield, and the talk should go on.
Well, news of the visit is just coming through, and my government hasn't responded to it specifically. I'm pretty sure that my Prime Minister would be very pleased with the fact that Mr. Modi has chosen to visit Ukraine at this point. We are deeply concerned by the fact that Russia has invaded a sovereign country. Big countries invading small countries is never a good thing. And in relation to Russia, this is a permanent member of the Security Council, one of the countries that the UN gives a special responsibility for upholding peace and security. And for such a large country to be involved in an outrageous intervention like this is very unacceptable for us. We are looking for a moment where Ukraine can find a way to form peace on its own terms. That's what it deserves as the wronged party in this case.
Now let's come to your relationship with China.
We've been through a difficult period with China, and our government has made an effort to stabilise relations with China. It's a big country, it's a powerful country. I don't think any of our countries want unstable relations with a country like that. There are many things where we can work with China, with trade, on important issues like the environment. China is a key player, and it has a role in our Indo-Pacific. But there are issues where we have differences with China. We are concerned about China's military build-up. It's the largest military build-up on the planet since the Second World War, and it's being undertaken without any reassurance as to what the purpose of this military build-up is. And then we see incidents like those around islands neighbouring the Philippines recently, which have seen unprofessional and dangerous conduct. We don't want to see that in our region. And then in relation to our own Navy, in recent months we saw an Australian naval diver in the water, in international waters, who was subject to a sonar attack. That's dangerous. We don't appreciate that, and we're very clear, both publicly and privately with China, we have these concerns.
And what's your take with a very interesting question that what's your take on Indo-China relationships, specifically with the border tensions?
Well, look, that's very much a matter for Beijing and New Delhi to resolve. I think Australia would appreciate if there's a lessening of tension. The border issues need to be resolved between the two parties principal, but nobody wants to see friction, loss of life, and possibly escalation. So I sense that there is an effort being made on both sides to perhaps ease the level of tension at the moment, and we in Australia welcome that.
See, like a lot of experts, international experts say that on Quad, like Quad has been made to for some design. So, how do you, what's your reaction to Quad?
Oh, well, Quad's...
and you are one of the major players in Quad you have done.
Well, it's true. I was one of Australia's Quad diplomats before I left Australia
Yes.
for my last assignment. And let me say this, I mean, that was the last time I visited India. That was in 2019. And the Quad is utterly transformed from what it was when I visited India then. At that stage, we just had occasional meetings of senior officials on the sides of other meetings. Now we've gone to ministerial level and even to prime ministerial and leaders level. We have annual summits. In those days, we had no working groups and no formal agenda. Sometimes we even did meetings without issuing communiques. Now we have a very clear work agenda and we're achieving things on the ground. So the Quad is transformed. For us, it's a crucial part of our effort to find a free and open and peaceful Indo-Pacific. Our region has bountiful opportunities, but also real strategic challenges. Australia and India share a vision for a region that is open and free, where sovereignty is paramount, where countries are able to choose for themselves, where no country dominates and no country feels dominated. The Quad's a crucial part of the way in which we seek to achieve that. And for us, as I said before, Australia and India now have this strategic alignment. That's new, that's fresh, that's very powerful, and it's one of the strongest links in our bilateral relationship.
Where is, I mean, like people say it's like for China. What do you have to say to that?
Well, you know, the Quad is not against any country. The Quad is for things. It's for the sovereignty of nations. It's for self-determination. It's for the ability of nations to choose their own pathway without coercion and without the threat of economic measures being used against them. We think of it as being for things, and we think that over the last several years it's achieved quite a lot in trying to establish a sustainable balance in the Indo-Pacific.
So as you also mentioned, the human bridge and the education factor, and a lot of your universities are coming here and we go there. So what do you see going forward from here?
Look, there's a great history and a great future in Indian students coming to Australia. Currently is about 120,000 Indian students in Australia. They're very welcome. They make a good contribution to our society. We want them to have a high quality education experience, return home and be able to be part of the next phase of growth of India's economy. But that shouldn't be a one-way street. We welcome more Indian students coming to Australia, but the Australian government has encouraged Australian universities to open foreign branch campuses here. As you say, the opportunity for that was given in Gift City. Of all of the universities in the world, only 2 have chosen to set up in Gift City. Both of them are Australian. Deakin University and Wollongong, yes. They're both teaching courses right now as we speak. But that's not the end of the story, because the Modi government's new economic policy allows foreign branch campuses in other parts of the country, not just in Gift City. And there are already 2 Australian universities which have determined to open foreign branch campuses in other parts of India, and there are many more who are looking. So this, for me, is a vital turning point in our relations. The education relationship shouldn't be a two-way street, and I'd like to think that Indian parents and students will have an option. They'll have an option of study in Australia, which has many advantages, but of course is costly and means that a loved one is removed from the family. Now they will have options to study in India, which will be cheaper. It will have the same high quality education, and it means that families can remain united. So I think there are benefits in both, and I'm delighted that this is occurring.
Same, we are also delighted. So what do you have to say on the strategic relationship, that means the defense relationship, specifically the Pacific Ocean is there, the Indian Ocean is there?
Well, as you say, the defence relationship is going ahead very quickly, and we are doing more and more exercises with India. Indian troops have just returned from our exercise in Australia, and very shortly we'll be welcoming Australian planes and ships to exercise Malabar. What we need to do is to normalise the new things we've done. It's one thing for military units to have worked with India once or twice, but we want that to become normalised and natural so that our armed forces can work in an interoperable way. We want to be able to work with India in the closest possible way across our region. Dare I say this, especially in the northeast Indian Ocean. This is a crucial international waterway. True. It borders both India to the east and Australia to the west. And as strategic partners, I can see huge advantage in Australia and India working more closely in this shared zone.
And how do you see the recent developments of our neighbour, Bangladesh?
Well, we're committed to working with the interim arrangement with Professor Yunus. It is good that he's arrived on the scene. It is excellent that he has called for peace, order and justice. Peace, order and justice. That's what we would like to see in this country. Bangladesh has a long and distinguished history as a country which is multi-faith and tolerant. And that is going to be very important in the next phase, that level of tolerance and respect for minorities is maintained. It's also part of our broader Indo-Pacific. And domestic affairs in Bangladesh need to be resolved, but Bangladesh will also need to find its way in its sub-region, including with its vital partner, India. And we look forward to that going well. I note that Professor Yunus has decided to go to the BIMSTEC summit very shortly. I think it's a very clear sign that he intends to engage constructively with the neighbourhood, and we very much welcome that.
How do you see the relationship of Indo-Bangla relationship and with the present situation?
That's a matter for India to resolve. And naturally, we want to see close relations between these two important partners for us. We think of this to a large extent in the context of the Indian Ocean. India is a key partner for us in the Indian Ocean, and just earlier this year we held a major conference of dozens of Indian Ocean countries in our Indian Ocean capital, Perth, on our west coast. That had our Foreign Minister Penny Wong sitting alongside Dr. Jaishankar. We are working closely with India in the Indian Ocean region, and we trust that India will be able to find even better landing points in its relationships with these countries.
There has been reports that minorities are tortured there. What's your take on that?
Well, that would be a matter of deep concern. Professor Yunus has called for peace, order and justice. We strongly support that. For there to be peace and order, there needs to be respect for minority groups and certainly the avoidance of violence towards them. So we will be strongly urging the authorities in Bangladesh to ensure that there is that peace, order and justice, and that minority groups are protected in that country.
And going back to your country, like there are various talks, Khalistani movement is there. So there are certain elements who does protest. What do you have to say on that?
Well, overall, the Indian community in Australia is enormously harmonious, and it makes a very big contribution to our society. There are some who make protests. To be honest, those are small. From our perspective, a couple of things are important here. Ours is a free and liberal and open country. That means that there is a right to protest. And if people want to make a peaceful demonstration, wherever they come from, they're entitled to do that in our country. But they need to do that in a way which conforms with our laws. And violence will not be acceptable as part of that. And in particular, we hold as very important the integrity of Indian diplomatic missions, whether they be consulates or the High Commission in Canberra. Let me assure you that our authorities, our security authorities, our multicultural authorities, our intelligence authorities, our foreign policy authorities are making sure that Indian diplomatic premises are always kept very safe and secure.
That's great, because India is like Australia, is a next home always, because our population, a lot of population, it's like 1 million is there now. And one last question, how do you see India and Australia's relationship in coming 5 years?
Well, I would like to see stronger tie-ups between our firms, particularly in the area of renewable energy. I'd like to see Indian firms investing in Australian critical minerals capability so that Indian battery manufacture can happen with Australian lithium, with Australian cobalt. I'd like to see a further move on our free trade agreement so that we can make it even easier for our firms to trade and invest with each other. In the securities field, I'd like to see us become even more intimate partners than we are. developing strategic trust and being able to work in an interoperable way. And in relation to our people-to-people exchanges, I would like to see that people of Indian origin are taking an even greater share of the bilateral relationship and causing that to be better. They are best placed. They live in Australia, they know our culture, they know our way of life, but they know Indian language, they know Indian custom. They're perhaps in the very best position to be able to strengthen our bilateral links, especially in trade and investment. So we're looking very much to our Indian diaspora to make an even bigger contribution.
And also in sports, no matter, you all killed us during the World Cup, but India-Australia match is something which is very interesting, right?
Well, that is true, and we're very excited at the moment because the Border Gavaskar series will be taking place starting in November in Australia. We will be making some of that. Our foreign minister likes to say
beyond the match.
We need to use cricket to get beyond cricket. And so we will be making sure that Indian business people and senior officials who come to Australia at that time spend some time at the cricket, of course, and enjoying themselves with their families, but then do a little bit of business on the side. We think we can use cricket to get beyond cricket.
Yes. A very sad incident has taken place here in this city. So, what's your comment on that?
Well, I think the first thing to say is how deeply saddened I am, and I think on behalf of my government, we put out our most deepest commiserations to the family and friends of this young woman. The incident has been reported substantially in the Australian media, and all Australians, I think, will be saddened by this event. I think the other thing about that this reminds us is that safety and security for women, wherever they come from in the world, Australia is not blameless in this area. Safety and security of women at work, on the way to and from work, is vitally important. And we all need to work harder to make sure that women in our society can fully participate and not fear violence or intimidation.
Thanks a lot, sir, for giving us so much of time amongst your busy schedule, and we hope that the India-Australia relation really goes well, and specifically we'll definitely enjoy the cricket too.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste.